Hello and welcome to episode 111 of Can We Still Be Friends, a podcast where two friends stopped arguing about movies and started working through them together. I'm Nate Goss, here with Ryan Ebling. As we continue our gap year, we're watching Under the Tuscan Sun from 2003, directed by Audrey Wells. This movie was recommended to us by our friend Rachel Hughes Gates, and she was gracious enough to also be this episode's special guest. We'll talk to Rachel about why she thought this was a gap we needed to address and why she thinks people should see this movie.
Under the Tuscan Sun wasn't a huge hit, earning just over $43 million at the American box office, but critics were mostly positive. Many critics saw it as well-made, even if it's a little by the book. Few critics could deny the strength of Diane Lane's performance, praise which was underscored by her Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress, Musical or Comedy. Recently, audiences loved escaping to Italy with the hit HBO series The White Lotus, but many people forgot that 20 years earlier, Under the Tuscan Sun demonstrated the draw of southern Italy with much less prostitution and scandal.
But what is it that brings people back to Under the Tuscan Sun?
And how can we make sure that we never lose our childish innocence? Keep listening.
Well, of course. We were about to take a 10-day tour to romantic Tuscany. But I don't want Patty flying during her first trimester. Small sacrifice.
So we decided to change our coach tickets into an upgraded ticket. For you.
Oh, this is amazing. Really generous. Thank you, but no.
How can you say no to Tuscany?
No. Like that.
That's your depression speaking.
Well, it doesn't speak Italian. It speaks a little high school French. Besides, I'm not depressed anymore.
Then what are you still doing living at Camp Divorce with all those losers?
Be nice. Those are my people.
That's not a place you live. Guys, come on.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Frances, how she gets to Italy.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you were listening to that clip, and she does actually end up going to Tuscany.
She does.
It's a little unclear from that clip if she ever gets there. But,
yeah, I guess so.
It would be a very different movie if it just kind of ended there. Anyways, so Under the Tuscan Sun. This was a listener recommendation. The listener being right here next to us, actually. So, Rachel Hughes Gates, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
We're doing a gap year.
Yeah.
This was a movie that you reached out to us and said, have either of you seen this movie? And we were like, no, we have not. So would it be good to start off with maybe asking, I guess just ask you, why Under the Tuscan Sun? Why this movie?
Yeah, I guess I saw it in theaters and I hadn't seen it until last summer. So it'd been like a long stretch since I seen it. And it was just a movie I popped in. I was by myself, and it just like took up a lot of brain space for me the last year. And I don't know. We'll unpack it.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing that is kind of a nice coincidence is that this movie is celebrating a 20-year anniversary because this came out in 2003. So I imagine just 20 years passing, you'd be in a very different place now watching the movie than you would have been in the theater 20 years ago.
Yes, certainly.
So how old would you have been when you first saw it?
I was like 14, 15 years old when I saw it in theaters. And it was like pretty memorable for me because I like always went to see movies with my dad, and it was all like action movies and like Bruce Willis and Tom Cruise, like all of that action. And then my mom wanted to take me to a movie. I like never got to just go to the movies with my mom. I was like scandalized by this movie. I was like, oh my gosh, there's like a sex scene.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't even know what lesbians were. Like, honestly, I think I did not know.
Yeah.
But I think it is like still a really formative movie for me, even though I had like all this like, oh my gosh, maybe like guilt about seeing it. I don't know. But like since then, any movie that like comes out and is in the Italian countryside, like I love it. I think it was like really impressionable. Like Call Me by Your Name. They're like really iconic episode in Normal People. Even like Luca came out and it's a cartoon. And I like
the Pixar one. From
know.
Like, what,
my
was that
kids
3,
are like
4 years ago,
Mom,
something like that. Yeah.
Stop watching Luca all the time. I'm like, but there's this power of friendship in Italy. Like, so I don't know. I think it an important movie.
Yeah. So, do you have any idea like why your mom wanted to see it, or like was it? I mean, it was a very popular movie in its day.
Yeah, well, I think it was like Diane Lane was 37 or something when she recorded this film, and that's like about the same age that my mom was, I think. And now I'm that age, so like it all feels like pretty like personal, and it feels like that's why it should be a classic, because it is like really generational and really personal for a lot of women, I think.
And so it's not a movie that you've like watched over the years.
No.
What made you want to watch it again?
I think I was thinking about like how I was like drawn to all these Italian countryside movies, and I was like, you know, it's been a minute since I watched Under the Tuscan Sun, and then I watched it, and I would like just think about it all the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. My memory of this would probably, I would have been my senior year of high school, something when this came out. So it wasn't. I never considered it. I don't know. My film taste at the time, where it was not peak snobbishness, but it was approaching it, and I just probably thought I knew what this movie was going to be about, and like, I'm not interested. So that had unfortunately been my mindset about it. So I had never really thought to see it until you suggested it, and I was like, oh, I'm sure there's something that I am closing myself off to by not watching it. I'm glad I watched it, because when I did watch it, for one thing, I realized I recognized like the whole supporting cast. Like in the beginning scenes, it's like everybody in it.
Yeah, Kate Walsh, Sandra Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey Tambor. I don't remember his name, but the guy who plays her landlord is in Big Lebowski.
He's in Big Lebowski.
He's the landlord in Big Lebowski, too.
And he has the one-man show that they go to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have been 20. 2003, I would have been 20. I would have been in like an early college, kind of same as Ryan. I don't think I thought to sell this. My mom did not invite me to go see this movie with her, unfortunately.
Did she go see it though?
She may have. She certainly, I think, has seen it.
Okay.
Like, I think maybe she might have rented it though, and I think she liked it. I'm pretty sure she did. But I will say one thing as far as legacy for this movie is I'm a librarian, I'm a public librarian, and this movie, it just has a really lasting shelf life in our collection. It is, one that gets regularly checked out. We have these things, they're called binge boxes, that are like pre-curated sort of movies around a theme. And it's definitely featured in the sort of like cozy theme ones we have, and also the ones that have to do with like armchair travel. And it seems to me that it had a real big impact in even just the kinds of movies that got made after, focused more on sort of a woman finding herself, and sometimes that was through like travel or food, and that seemed to be like, movies like Eat, Pray, Love, and books too, by the way, because I think that this book also had a similar impact in the publishing industry. But yeah, so I mean, it was one of those things where I do think over the years, it seemed like a movie that continually was like, I should probably watch that at some point.
So since you're the only one of us who has a rewatch, was rewatching it for this any different this time? I know you said you saw it like a year ago. Watching it to get ready to talk about it can be a different thing, or just watching it knowing that it had been something that you had been thinking about for the last year or so. Was there anything different this time rewatching it?
Yeah, it was different rewatching it. Well, for one, I felt like there was a lot of pressure. I like suggested it and then was like, oh no, what if it's a bad idea? And you guys were like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, are you sure though? Like multiple times you guys could have backed out of doing this movie.
Not a chance.
But my husband watched it with me, which was really fun. And we even like, I love a theme. So we like took the kids to like a pretty iconic Italian grocery store in Milwaukee and let them pick out lots of treats. And we had like big Italian dinner. And then the kids went to bed, and then Ben and I got to watch it, and we had like limoncello, and
of course,
which is not that good. I don't like it, but I love a theme, so got to go for it. And he had been to Italy. He's been twice, and so like they get off the bus in Florence, and I was like, "Oh, have you been to that church?" And he's like, Oh, yeah, I have. That's like actually a really good shot. They probably use like a wide angle lens because it's like a really smart piazza. And like that's why the church is so iconic. And like, oh my gosh, like they're in the market. This movie was filmed before the Euro was adopted, right? Like all this detail that I would not have picked up on. It was like fun to watch
It's like
with
watching
him.
it with a tour guide.
Yeah. And then I guess nothing was like a surprise to me. But, I feel like every time like a guy came on screen, Ben was like, is that the guy, Ray? Is that the one she's going to fall in love with? And like, because I feel like you go into like a romance with like, who's it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's the like really cool part about this movie.
I
It's
agree.
just like, it's aged so well. Like she didn't need like the younger guy or the married guy. Like there was like all these things where you're like, oh, this is where it's gonna go, and it doesn't go there.
The
like
realtor, or like all the places it could go. And then I think it's funny that when it does go there, it goes there in the most predictable way, like his name, but she even knows it's predictable.
I know. You think maybe I'm just trying to pull you up.
Pull me up. Pick me up. Pick me up. Yes, there is that chance.
But you are the one who grabbed me and pretend I'm your husband. You're probably one of those crazy American women like Charlie's Angels, and maybe you are going to kung fu me in the head and steal my car. But I'm willing to take the chance.
You're willing. What is your name?
Marcello.
Of course it is.
Everything that other movies would do and act like it's new, this movie does it, and she's totally aware of it, which I think is really smart.
They call out the cliches. I mean, he talks about how they expect American women to act, and she talks about how she expects Italian men to act.
right.
And that way, it's a smart movie. And that's the thing is, I keep wanting to call it a romantic comedy, but it's not.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like the ingredients are there, but it's not really what the movie's doing at all. In a romantic comedy, it's kind of about, the two love interests eventually finding each other, and then that's where they find their fulfillment. In this one, you have a love interest, and it takes a while to get there. And I'm like, is that the guy? Is it the guy? It's not going to be the realtor, is it? That's kind of creepy.
Yeah, don't break the marriage. Yeah.
And then it finally happens, and then it kind of falls apart, and you have to reorient yourself and kind of figure out, okay, so what's this movie trying to do? And it's really about her finding herself through both this place, through this house, through her friends, through this guy a little bit, but more as a learning experience instead of a romantic interest. And and that way it's like it's going for more than what your traditional romantic comedy is.
Yeah. But it's got all the things that make romantic comedies nice too.
Yeah,
like
right.
what is so cozy about them. And ultimately she finds not needing someone to give her something, but finding fulfillment in what she can offer to other people through like all the different avenues, including romantically and sexually. But that's just a part of it that is not the point of it. But it still has the will they, won't they excitement. And then the payoff is they won't. And that's for the best. I guess I don't know how to say this in a way that isn't patronizing. But I guess I was surprised how funny it was. Just like little things like her apartment, the divorce apartments.
Just he's like crying.
The guy crying through the wall.
Maybe I'll come over later. And then she's like,
oh, what am I doing? No.
Can't go over there.
Yeah. And also there was a line, I can't remember everything about the scene, but where they're talking about Americans just kind of like making the world worse. And then she says, a lot of us feel really badly about that.
Yeah.
It's so aware of the way a movie can take for granted, like an American moving through those spaces and just being like, wow, this is so exotic and I'm being fed by it. And but then to have people there be kind of skeptical of that. And it just, I'll probably just keep saying this. The movie just seems so aware of all of the pitfalls of movies that are like this or books that are like this.
Yeah.
And it's, like you said, just really smart.
So now you're watching it and it's 20 years later. Like, what kind of things in the movie are you kind of grasping to now that maybe are different from when you first watched it?
Well, I'll say a pretty big difference is that 14-year-old Rachel thought Pavel was the hottest, but 30-year-old Rachel thought Marcello was the hottest. That was a pretty big change.
That's good. Age appropriate.
Yeah, some growth and maturity there. But then the third time I watched it, Martini was my favorite. I just thought he was like such a good guy. I just really, really liked him. And I think that it's like really good to show male characters who are like there for a girl, but not like, oh, two people in a room together, they're gonna bone. But like that didn't happen. And it could have, and it didn't. And
Well, he even kind of said
And again, they even address it.
to happen.
Did he say he wanted to?
I don't know.
He said he would have to make love to her if.
Yeah, I don't
remember.
think he was offering. I think he was just sort of saying, I don't know.
Everything else that Martini does is just like he's the good guy, and not just for Francis. Like when he helps Catherine out of the fountain. Like I think that scene is clunky, but I think it's like maybe like a cultural and language difference where he's like, "Girl, I know that you might need some vitamin D," as they say, but it's not me. Like, I can help you with lots of other things, but this is not the thing that I can help you with. Like, I kind of think that is the vibe.
I like that interpretation.
Yeah.
I'll go
I
with that. Yeah.
Senora, please stop being so sad. If you continue like this, I'll be forced to make love to you. And I've never been unfaithful to my wife. Buonanotte, signora.
Buonanotte, signor Martini. Grazie.
I don't know. From a screenwriting standpoint, it almost feels like another way that it was aware of where it would go. But the characters are grounded in reality enough to say, like, that is not going to make this situation better. Like, we could, but that's not going to fix it. But I agree. I really grew to like that character, and that's the realtor, his character, a lot. He's just a stand-up guy.
There's not really a bad character, and actually that's what I think is also sets this movie apart, is it doesn't feel the need to even show the ex or even or even have a moment where she confronts him. It is all about her.
It is
this
Frances'
movie,
story.
it's her story, and it's not even her story as any sort of way that she needs to process any further whatever was going on with that marriage. Like that, we as a viewer don't need to see that ex. She gets to the point, and I think it's kind of part of the point, is that she gets to the point where she doesn't feel that need to probably have to ever talk or see that person ever again.
Right.
But I just appreciated that about it. And because you don't have the ex, and it's hard to kind of fabricate someone else who's bad, like there's really no bad people in this movie.
Yeah. I think Catherine could have been some sort of antagonist or a weird, I don't know. She could have been somebody other than she is. But
that's the Fellini, the Lindsay Duncan plays. Like Catherine.
Fellini's muse.
Yeah.
But she's also a really interesting character because she's sort of the wisdom, but she's also a complete mess.
Yeah, she's so chaotic.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about Catherine, honestly. She was like,
I think you mentioned the word clunky earlier. That did seem like one of the more sort of clunkier pieces of the movie, is everything around Catherine's character. Like, I don't really know her purpose, I guess.
Well,
like, other than kind of like she's there almost as like a guardian angel. Like, she kind of just tells Frances what she needs to hear when she needs to hear it.
And a cautionary tale.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah.
If you make it about Italy and like the romance of Italy, this is what you're going to become. You're going to become this person who has sort of who's not living in reality. Because again, it's another way the movie is smart and addressing something. Fellini is so many people's view of Italy. So now we have this character whose only view of Italy, even now, is still through Fellini. And there's good things about that, and there's bad things about that, because then you make a fool out of yourself prancing in a fountain. But you also remind someone, don't lose your childish innocence, and don't forget to be happy.
Oh, you're so boring.
What?
I said you're boring. Look at you. You're sad. Again. You're like a big black hole.
Excuse me, but
Vivi always said, regrets are a waste of time. They're the past crippling you in the present.
It's like usually in romances, it's like the stick in the mud character who's like, you know, like Frances is like, I'm afraid of everything. I can't move on. And then there's like the Catherine who's like petting the ducks and eating the gelato and like, you know, like, so like but I think Catherine is like helpful. Like when they're at dinner, she's like, celibate means single. He's not asking. Like, so she is like kind of a guide to be like, I'm also not from Italy, but let me show you the ropes a little bit. I did rewatch the trailer just to be like, how come no one wanted to watch this movie? And the trailer is not good. One of the biggest things that is like so annoying to me is that the washing machine that gets like electrocuted in the storm and it like falls off the cliff or whatever. And it's like, what kind of movie? It's not Ghostbusters. Like, why are you doing this? And they like show that in the trailer. Like, this has nothing to do with the movie at all.
I think that was for the younger viewers who aren't homeowners yet, and they don't get the dread of like, how damaged is this house going to get from this storm?
That was when the water flows at the end. Ben and I were both like, water damage, no, turn it off.
Yeah, or when the steam's coming up from the toilet, and I'm like, oh, that looks expensive.
Yeah. There are a few things that are sort of like, that was a choice.
They're in the book, Under the Tuscan Sun, there is like a giant storm and like a bird flies into the window. So like, I think that's what Audrey Wells was trying to do.
Oh, so you've read the book?
Yes.
At some point, we should talk about maybe differences between
Martini
the two.
was the realtor who was like very helpful and like got their contractor and like seemed like a really nice guy.
But in the book, she's buying this house with her fiance, right?
There was a divorce. It's her new partner that she's buying the house with.
Okay.
But like the movie, there's like none of his perspective. There's no like why the divorce happened. Like there's nothing about that in the book.
Okay.
I will say that the Frances in the movie is much more likable than the Frances in the book.
That's too bad because she was writing herself in the book and not writing herself in the movie.
Well, we can't all be Diane Lane.
But even like the line like when she's like writing the postcard and she's like, the grape even tasted like purple. Like that is a direct quote from the book. Okay. Like, so lots of like cheesy eye rolling things are like, that's the book. It was a bit of a slog.
True. All right.
So, and you would definitely prefer the movie over the book then?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often.
Right. But I guess I feel like some of the times where they kind of venture out into little scenes of Italian cultural experiences felt a little shoehorned, like the flag scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're dancing with flags.
Yeah, there was that whole, and I think you even said you were more attracted to him when you were younger watching this. You mentioned...
Was it his flag dance?
I mean, boy's got talent. You can wear the heck out of some overalls, some leggings. What can't Pavel do?
Catch a flag.
Just the one drop.
No, just when he's distracted, that's all.
Yeah.
But I think you mentioned
I thought
earlier,
that was going to be a lot more violent for some reason. Like it felt like it was just coming. Not that the movie would go there, but I just felt
lying in a pool of blood. Is that what you were saying?
Is that it for Pavel?
But you did earlier mention like kind of the idea of it being generational, and I do feel like that is It is also very smart that the movie has that younger love story in it. It's interesting. It's like the movie doesn't discount that experience, but it also sort of like has a wisdom to it because you're seeing it through Diane Lane's perspective as someone older looking at it.
Right, but she still goes to bat for Pablo and Chiara and believes in love again. Like his character is really important.
Yeah.
And against xenophobia too, because there was some anti-immigrant feelings coming from her family.
Right. I mean, you have like the young love. You also have Diane Lane's sort of older experience looking at it, but I think you just have all these different types of relationships, including like friendships even as well. Like this friendship that she has with Patty, who I thought was going to be done. Like after, when watching it, I was like, oh, she's coming back. That's great.
You know, there's like gay best friend trope where it's like, oh, they solved my problem and got me this ticket, and then you don't hear from them again. But it's like, and then Patty has problems and Frances is there for her. Like it's totally a reciprocal relationship. And Patty knows about her like work process where she's like, nope, these brownies, don't be fooled. It means she's stuck at work. Like they know the ins and outs of each other. I like when the toilet is like steaming or whatever, they just like kind of make puns in the bathroom together, which is like, I love that.
Yeah. The friendship is so lived in. To bring her back is just a really natural way to inject some new resolve into Frances to get her act together a little bit. Because it's not just about Patty coming in and being the gay best friend to her again, but in Italy this time, but actually to show Frances you do feel fulfilled when you are able to help people and when you know someone and when you have a relationship beyond whatever is going on with Marcello. I think that getting over Marcello might not have been as quick if she hadn't had that sort of reminder of who she is and what she actually cares about.
Well, and talking about so if you talk about the relationship with Marcello, it's Marcello, right? Or Marcello?
I thought it was Marcello.
Oh, Marcello.
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. I said Marcello. Marcello.
I kind of like, as far as like how that relationship unfolds and actually just kind of ends, is it's nothing huge. It's just, we kept trying to meet up with each other and it wasn't working out. We kept crossing our paths and we just weren't able to get back together. And then he just basically finds someone new, you know? But I think it's true to both him as a character, but also what he does as far as the sort of thing she needs to learn from him, I guess. Because I think he says, at one point he says, if you smash into something good, you should hold on to it until it's time to let it go. So it's just like, he kind of just frames it for her in this way of like, hey, we had something good. It lasted. We hold on to it and then we just let it go, you know?
I think the foreshadowing on that is like perfect. Because a lot of times in rom-coms, it's like, I waited 17 years. It's like, not everyone's gonna do that. That's a little crazy. Like,
I didn't ask you to do
like
that.
He tried. He went to the house. She wasn't there. Like, it wasn't like, I don't think it was like a one night stand to him. I think he tried, but he's the rebound for Frances. Like, I don't see them together forever anyway. So,
I mean, he was charming enough that if it had worked out, I would have been like, oh, that's a good guy. But I think they framed it well enough and it served its purpose. I think that's something that makes this movie work so well, is everything serves its purpose. Nothing is like the most important thing to the story or to Frances, that it's varied enough that moving on feels healthy rather than something she missed out on or
a failure of some sort.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Even though for a time it seems like she does think that way, she ends up learning not to think that way, which is like that foreshadowing you were talking about.
Can we just, I just want to talk let's just talk a little bit about Diane Lane.
Yes.
Just, I mean, because to me, she's just so perfectly cast in this role. And as I was watching this with my wife, Andrea, and she doesn't remark on acting all that often, but she just kind of, she just goes, she's so good at just looking genuinely excited and joyful about things.
Now, I mean, I don't know. You mentioned being closer in age to her changed the way you saw her. Do you feel the same way about Diane Lane, or was she always engaging to you?
I don't know that I could tell you a single other Diane Lane movie.
I'm feeling
really embarrassed on the spot right now. I don't know anything.
No.
Like, but she did great in this movie. A+. Like, this movie is about Frances and she sells it. Like, she's so good. She's exhausted. She's depressed. It's great. She's great.
Just really engaging and natural. I wondered why she wasn't, and I know we are avoiding calling this a rom-com, but why she wasn't a bigger presence in like rom-coms, because she was so good in this. But I also feel like because she's not Julia Roberts or Renee Zellweger, it's Frances's movie. It's not Diane Lane's movie. You know, it's not, we're watching Julia Roberts be like lovelorn in Italy or anything. Another thing, I'm going to move on, I guess, that I felt while I was watching it is that how much the clothes do the storytelling in this movie, depending on who's wearing what, and especially Catherine with that white feather hat thing, I feel like did a lot of shortcutting to, oh, we know who this person is and what's going on here. Again, kind of the way Diane Lane's so natural in her emotions. I feel like the clothes she wears are also believable for someone who's like renovating a house, but also looking good in Italy and feeling good in Italy. And It's just a really good mix of when to wear really kind of glamorous clothes and when to dress down in a way that's realistic. Like she's not just suddenly wearing, like has her hair in a ponytail and we're like, oh, now she's in working mode or something. Did you guys have any thoughts on the costuming or anything that stood out to you?
Just the gay in the way hat that she wore. Like she's living out of a suitcase. She got a free hat on tour. Like I'm doing some yard work. I'm gonna throw on this free hat. Like being very realistic.
Whatever questions people might have about it, I'm still wearing this hat.
Well, I think it has to strike this weird tone, right? Where because it wants you to have a very romantic view of Tuscany. When you see like the nuns, and then you see like the older man that always puts the flowers in the vase, and these people who still, I mean, it's just it's like a weekday and they're wearing like a full suit and everything, But then you also have the other people working and everything are wearing what they need to wear to be comfortable, or like you said with Catherine, the sort of glamour that she kind of has to put on, and she's living out a different idealized version of Italy. So there's like the Italy that's like The Godfather, right? And then there's like the Italy that's Fellini. Like the movie is very aware of all of our different romanticized visions of Italy, and also kind of acknowledges that it is a fabrication. It's being a movie, I guess. Like it's doing the job of knowing that it's an American audience that kind of wants to get away for a little bit and think about Italy in a very like idealized kind of way. I mean, even the house itself. I mean, we've all had to do like home remodels and things like that. Believe me, if your wall caves in like that, you're not just picking up some boulders and taking them away and then looking and being like, "Hey, looks pretty good,"
Yeah.
But still, it's a movie. It gives you that cinematic experience of what the actual character transformation is and what's going on with the character.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by how the movie is aware of what it is and acknowledges it in a way that isn't annoying or obvious. Or meta. It's just sort of like, we know we're watching a movie about Italy. Let's acknowledge we're watching a movie about romance. Let's acknowledge everything that could happen in every movie that we would expect. And let's not try to completely avoid it, but let's not be so hemmed in by all of those preconceived notions that we're going to be just a predictable, by the numbers, romantic movie in Italy.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking back to the little binge boxes that you were talking about, and I feel like
the library,
at the library, like it could be like in a romance box, it could be like in the travel, it could be even in like HGTV if you like home remodeling, it could be like part cooking show, like it really does like a lot of work in one movie,
And I mean, I guess you don't tend to think of movies about people in their 30s as coming of age movies, but it's sort of like a midlife coming of age movie. What feels different about it for so many of those movies that address that is that it feels like a very optimistic movie, very hopeful. Like hope is present everywhere. Even when she's feeling like low, there's somebody around her who offers hope, but not in any way that I feel like is just trite.
I agree. Like, but all that being said, I still don't think that she comes off as like being super needy, because she is also there for so many people.
Right.
Like she's there for the immigrant refugee. She's there for the queer community. She's there like, hey, Catherine needs a hand. Like, why don't you go help her? I think she really needs like a guy to help. Like, I think that she really is like, she is grieving, but she still like shows up for her friends like over and over again.
But not in any way that people are like that you think she's being taken advantage of either. It's not like one of those characters where it's like, oh, you just need to focus on yourself more. She's just good at it and knows when to do it.
I think it helps that she got completely away. Like that is part of it. It does help to reinvent yourself when you're kind of just thrown into some place you have no idea where you're at and you have to literally build a life from scratch. And I mean, I'm turning 40 this week. That's its own kind of fantasy. That's going to come out wrong if my wife and kids are listening. but you get to a certain age and everything, and you do kind of wonder, like, what if you did just have to completely like start over? That'd be so frightening.
Yeah.
But I mean, you used the term midlife coming of age movie, and I think that's very like accurate. Like it does feel like a lot of the coming of age movies that you watch about like younger people finding themselves. It's just kind of nice to see one that's about someone who's older doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you also get the sense too, on top of the sort of fantasy of getting away from your family? Is that what you were describing?
Yeah. Let's just go with that. Why not?
I think there's a tendency to romanticize your youth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is another thing that the Pavel Fiorella, is that the girl?
Chiara.
Oh, Chiara.
That romance between the two younger characters.
I just think that the tendency to romanticize like young love and like maybe like a romance with Pavel would be something desirable,
worth aspiring to.
Or, but then you see that, you know, like they're having sex in her bed and like all of the things that come with that sort of like young romance that she's like, oh, I'm really glad I'm past that point.
Right.
So, I mean, it just kind of addresses that. I just feel like this movie addresses everything that could come up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a trick to play, to sort of like look at young love through her eyes and still not just completely like shoot it down.
Yeah, it's not cynical.
It's not cynical about it, but it is saying, yeah, but that's not where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm grateful I'm past that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to talk about Marcello.
All right, let's talk about Marcello a little bit.
I think there's something that he does in the movie that was really, really powerful, and I think most women would connect with it, but I want to see if you guys can figure
Probably went
it
right
out.
over it.
Jeez. Okay.
Wanna...
Wait, so that's it? We have to figure out what he did?
There's something he
like
did.
A really, really like brilliant writing. Love it so much. It's the scene that I think about the most.
Okay, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Putting us on the spot here.
So wait.
Yeah, I am putting you on the spot.
So this is
something he says, or does, or is.
One of those three.
You're not going to give us any sort of hint?
I mean, before they like have the talk that like it's going to happen.
Okay.
Is
it that he tells her she should keep the kitten?
You'd think it is the kitten. It's pretty cute, but that's not it.
Okay.
Is it before they go to his restaurant?
No.
Is it the scene with his niece?
Yes.
Is it that he tells his niece to have more ice cream?
Yes.
Oh, instead of saying you've had two, you need to stop?
Zio,
Amore mio,
voglio il gelato.
vuoi il gelato? E quanti ne hai presi?
2.
Solo 2 ne hai presi. E vattene a prendere un altro, vai. Ora me lo vaso prima. Vai. Corri, veloce. Maria, dagli un gelato. Bello grosso, eh?
I think like most women have had like shame with what they eat or body image, stuff like that. And it was like jaw on the floor so nice that this niece is like, please, can I have some more ice cream? And he's like, how much did you have? And she's like, I only had 2. And I feel like,
yeah.
And he's like, well, of course you can have more. Like, I think he just makes himself known as like a safe person to ask for pleasure. And for like a 9-year-old girl, that's like ice cream on the beach. And a 30-year-old girl, sometimes that's ice cream on the beach, you know? Like, but like, I think of like Little Miss Sunshine. Do you remember when she like orders the a la mode at the restaurant and everyone is like,
Right.
Are you the cal? Like, that's like such the American version of it. Like, that's like the Italian dream, is to just be like, sure, get some more ice cream.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be so fun?
Well, and you use the word pleasure, and I think that's a lot of what Marcello embraces. Sort of like our ideal of Italy is that it's a place that you can go and just experience pleasure in life, you know, and he kind of embodies that.
That's smart writing, not only in that like it informs Marcello and the audience's opinion of him, but it also is permission that Frances hasn't been allowing herself, because every time something comes up, it's, I should be writing, or, you know, like there's all these reasons why she isn't allowed or shouldn't be allowed to indulge in something. And the pleasure of it is never a good enough reason.
I guess I just kind of glanced over that scene. So it's really interesting that, you know, that really stuck with you. And I could see that being something that would be, it definitely informs the character a lot. One scene that I really liked and that I didn't expect is the scene with the camera when she's taking pictures of her with the Polish workers. That's kind of one of the few times where I think I noticed like what the movie was doing, like because it freezed on them with the black and white shot and everything. But I just thought it was this very touching way of showing that these are also memories that she's building with these people, and that when you invite people into your life, or when you actually like take the time, because I mean, obviously she hired them to do a job, so they could have just been that to her, people who come and do a job, but she decided to kind of let them be a part of her life. And so when you take these photos and there's these snapshots and these stills where they're like in very like just happy poses and happy positions, it kind of just cements for me as the viewer that this is sort of like what is key to life. By inviting people in, you're building memories for yourself. But I just like the idea of like taking a moment to show like literal snapshots, I guess, of all this that's going on.
Just those little touches that are really effective at driving the point home in various ways, not just like repeating itself.
Right. So Rachel, I know you were at the get-go, you were saying, why is this movie occupying so much of my mind? And I guess I'm just wondering, like, through maybe talking it out or watching it more intently, like, do you have any kind of answer to that question, or any thoughts on why it is something that has had such a resonating impact on you?
Oh, maybe like it just does a lot of work in one movie. Maybe it like had a pandemic baby, like traveling's not in the cards right now. Like maybe it is like a escape. I don't.
Is there a reason that when we ask people to suggest movies that they think we haven't seen, is there a reason that Under the Tuscan Sun came to mind? Is there something you wanted people to see?
Well, I didn't think either of you would have seen it, so I thought that was a pretty safe bet. It is like written by a woman, directed by a woman, stars women. It tells women's stories, like, but I'm glad that you guys seem to get a little bit out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like, honestly, I showed up like a little bit ready to scrap, and for you guys to not like it, but you guys had like really nice things to say. I'm glad that you like took the risk to watch it, because I feel like I was like talking about it to some other people, and they're like, "Why did you choose that?" And but I stand by it.
I mean, I won't say it's a perfect movie, but I did really enjoy it, and the things we've been talking about have been things that I wouldn't have thought to look for in it if I hadn't been watching it this way. And I also am really glad that you were here to talk about it, because one, I wouldn't have wanted to have just a talk with Nate and then have you listen to that and be like, no, what? You missed the ice cream. But I think that your experience with it 20 years apart is also really interesting to think about how you would see it when you were 14 versus how somebody would see it when they were closer to Francis's age. I feel like watching it and talking about it is just a further exercise in like being more gracious than my former movie watching self had been, and meeting a movie where it is rather than where I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was actually talking to my wife about this, where I think in the past I only knew how to watch movies in this very binary way of like, did I like it, did I not like it, period. And I find that, through the podcast and also just through like trying to be more open as a person, taking the movie on its own terms, what's the movie trying to do? Do I like it for that, or do I not like it for that? And I feel like this movie is one that I probably would have written off even a couple years ago, because, in some ways it's not really a movie for me.
Right.
And this movie to me is a type of fantasy, like most movies are. It's a fantasy about taking some control over your life and trying to make it better. That like a life that needs changing, you can decide to just do it differently, to remake it, to remodel it, to go buy somewhere else, to move someplace different, and to just make your life not necessarily better, or like, it's just about choosing different paths and like choosing to make your life different than what it is now. It's like not just being static and staying in the same place. And I think this movie presents that fantasy in a lot of really compelling and useful ways. You know, like if it's not the home remodeling that's doing it for you, then maybe it's the romance that's doing it for you. But that romance isn't really the purpose of the movie. And if it's not the romance, then maybe it's the young love that's doing it for you. If it's not the young love, then maybe it's the community and the people and the friend that's always there for you and has been there for your entire life. Like I feel like this movie is just a big stew of like all these different ways that you can have like transformations in your life. And Diane Lane is just a great actress to be that vessel, I guess, for people who want to have that kind of fantasy experience in a movie. And it's valuable. I think it's a valuable thing to sit there and have that, especially like living and coming out of a pandemic. You know, a lot of us are kind of looking at things now and wanting transformations, wanting to rebuild our lives in some way. And this movie can kind of hit, I think, in those moments and be a pretty powerful thing.
And even though it's such a massive change for her, it really is a series of like recalibrations, which makes it less of a fantasy and more of like a reminder that you may not need to overhaul your life, but just know that you can make changes. You can improve things and you can be more of the person you want to be.
It like totally has that fantasy, totally. But like she still has like an abandoned pregnant friend show up on her doorstep. Like just even if you leave, like problems still happen, and it like addresses that pretty realistically.
Yes, I agree.
It's not complete fantasy, but then it like she gets her wish at the end, and there's the wedding in the house and the family in the house, and
maybe
like,
even a new love interest. Maybe
you know, like her dream came true. Like the checklist, it, like there's like. I'm so type A, like when your checklist gets checked off, it's so good. And like that happened for Frances.
So everything she wanted,
Okay, so you were just saying you're very type A, very organized. So what do you make of the whole idea? Like they talk about the ladybugs idea in this, about how you actually need to let that go. And then that's when the good things come to you. And then that's the guy at the end, he picks a ladybug off of her arm, you know?
You don't buy that part.
That's the fantasy. That's the fantasy.
No.
You make your magic happen.
No, I would like to believe that good things will just come to you, but I think to my core, I'm like, you just gotta work hard, and that's. And it's
good things aren't coming, you gotta work harder.
The pleasure, and the checklist is the dopamine, and you check it off, and then you get more dopamine, and it's so good. Keep doing that.
Yes. Well, Rachel, as Ryan said, I'm also just very appreciative of being able to talk about this movie with you on the podcast because again, I don't think it was a movie that I would have necessarily picked up on my own. So thanks for recommending it, and also thanks for all your insight here and all of your viewing experience that you brought to the podcast.
I feel like I definitely need to watch it again with like a theme night though, because I just watched it last night and I didn't do it up.
You didn't even make your own focaccia or pizza crust? Ryan!
I didn't, not last night.
I feel like it's a movie that's like best enjoyed with a glass of wine.
Well, I know that now.
Like,
I know that now. I'm going to have to do it again.
We did it all wrong.
That's
kind of what you're
we
getting
really
at,
screwed it up.
I know. Well, it's amazing that we even like the movie still.
Without that experience,
we didn't do that, all of that.
I can't imagine how much more. But anyway, thanks again. And we'll talk about what we're going to do next time.
All right, yeah. So for our next episode, so first of all, we need to kind of say, I don't think we've kind of announced it yet, but we are going to kind of switch up our schedule a little bit for the podcast. So this is our May episode. So we're going to kind of do 2 months on for a season and then take a break. So
1 month break.
Well, yeah, we're gonna do 2. You're messing up the math already, Ryan.
I'm sorry.
For me. You were actually correct in the math.
All right.
But yeah, so we're looking at two episodes, and then we take a 1 month break. So we just did our April and May episodes. So we're going to take a little bit of a break in June, give ourselves a bit of a summer. Mm-hmm. Soak up the sun, relax on the beach.
Yep.
And then it's straight back to work for July.
That's right.
So we are going to be doing a July episode, and we are going to keep with our gap year theme, and we're going to fill in a gap, a movie that we really should have seen by now.
Right.
I think this one fits the bill quite well.
Probably.
Of something that our listeners are going to be like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Some of them.
Maybe you should unveil it. What's the movie that we really should have seen by now?
Well, we're going for a summer kind of blockbuster feel. And so we're going to one of the big summer blockbuster stars, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Of course.
We're going back to, I believe, 1987.
Okay, so
maybe
listeners,
86.
maybe you're starting to pick up on this a little bit.
And this is the classic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's become like it's its own
series
franchise thing, you know?
I really need to watch the most recent one. I hear it was very good. The movie is Predator.
Yeah. Carl Weathers.
Weathers is in it. Jesse Ventura is in it. I mean...
And honestly, there's not a whole lot more I know about it.
Same. I think the Predator is invisible.
Doesn't he? Okay, here's the other weird thing. I have seen Alien versus Predator.
Have you? I bet you were lost.
I didn't know what was going. I knew the alien stuff.
Yeah, right.
And then Predator came. I don't get this part.
This doesn't make sense.
And then they came on screen together, and I'm like, I get half of this.
Yeah.
Half the screen I get.
Now, I've kind of felt like I should see Predator. I was like, okay, like probably should. You know, I've seen Rambo. I've seen
that's the thing.
I've seen some of that other stuff.
I've seen Commando,
Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator, of course. Yeah.
But then the thing that really made me want to watch it is actually the most recent one, Prey.
I mean, we could. I mean, I'm not saying we'll do the episode on both, but I mean, I could try to
watch
them both.
Do you know anything about Prey?
I know nothing, Ryan.
Well, Prey is about the first time a predator came. I think it's in the Southwest, American Southwest, and the predator fights against a Native American warrior.
Okay. Whereas the original Predator is more central. It's like jungle, Central America.
I'm not sure where. Okay. I think it is jungle.
I'm just reading that this is the IMDb synopsis. Okay. A team of commandos. So I've seen Commando.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
it's probably seen. Yeah. So now you're going to see Commando versus Predator.
Yeah. If they would have called it that, because I'm very much about versus
predators. Yeah.
So a team of commandos on a mission in a Central American jungle find themselves hunted by an extraterrestrial warrior.
Yeah. And I'm guessing anybody who is a Predator fan is like, this is the worst conversation I've ever heard about Predator. Right. And doesn't give them hope for actually having us watch Predator and talk about it.
I'm going to do my homework.
Yeah.
I'm going to try at least.
Somewhat.
Like
what? What are you talking about?
Well, I just mean that like,
because we just had a guest, Rachel, who read the book in preparation. Right. She cooked a special meal and got special drinks just to watch it. What are you going to do your homework?
Well, I'm okay. Well, I don't believe this was based on a book. So I don't think I'll be reading the Predator book.
You don't? Yeah. Well, it was an Ernest Hemingway short story.
Okay. I thought it was Old Man in the Sea, but I guess it was Old Man versus Predator.
Yeah.
The great Hemingway classic. But
novella, really.
My homework, I think, is going to... So I'm going to watch the movie, which is already, my leg...
That's enough.
Compared to most episodes.
That's enough.
We're on our way, right?
Yeah.
I'll watch the movie. But I do think I'll watch Prey if I can.
Okay.
But... Also,
that's as much as I would commit to.
What I mean by homework is I want to dig into the fandom a little bit.
Okay.
Like I kind of want to I'm going to read up on some articles and some debates around Predator.
Okay. What are the Predator debates? Do you think?
I'm just guessing they're out there. Listeners, you tell me.
I feel like that might be a debate I don't really feel like wading into, but.
Well, obviously,
all that to say,
Predator. They've got sequels, right? Beyond just Prey.
As far as I know.
So I don't know that I'll watch all the sequels, but
I will not.
I might. Another aspect of my homework will be
rewatch Alien versus Predator.
Pulling up the Wikipedia and looking at the ongoing what happens with the Predator in the series.
Where they go with it.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do, Ryan?
I'm gonna watch Predator. I'm gonna watch. Right. I didn't commit to any homework though. I didn't start. I didn't start swaggering around the room.
I only meant
acting like I was gonna dig into this.
What I'm trying to say here is if there's a listener here who really loves Predator, and
can do our homework for us.
Tell us what you think. Tell us why you love it. Maybe even consider coming on the podcast.
Sure.
Maybe. Okay. But there's that. But then set that aside for the larger mass of Predator fans we have right now. What I'm just trying to get across is I'd like to think we might have something to say in our discussion that they would still want to listen, as opposed to what we're doing right now, where
Right.
they're kind of like, why the hell would I
Okay,
listen
I
to a
gotcha,
Predator
yeah.
episode?
Well,
when these guys
obviously,
don't
yeah.
know, they're going to,
Maybe
I
this
want
is
them
their
to think,
first episode.
okay, the episode's not till July, Nate's going to do his homework.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
there's going to be some
Okay,
more
I
context
gotcha.
provided.
You're
for this.
yeah. Promising that this won't just be a conversation.
This isn't just going to be
about our ignorance of
yes,
Predator.
This isn't just going to be. Look, I don't know anything about Predator.
Yeah.
But I watched it, and I still don't know about the Predator.
Okay.
But I watched it.
Yeah. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do our due diligence.
Yes.
Watch the movie, think about it, talk about it.
Right.
And if you want to talk about it, you can join us.
Please.
You can
Please do.
offer to be a guest on our podcast. We'd welcome that.
Yeah. And if you don't want to be a guest, we have all sorts of ways that you can talk to us and
That's
give
true.
us some, at least a little bit of feedback, a little bit of stuff we can think about going into this.
Yeah.
Give us your feedback. To listen to or comment on this or any of our past episodes, find us at canwestillbefriends.net or email us at feedback@canwestillbefriends.net. You can find us on Facebook at Can We Still Be Friends Podcast or Instagram at Can We Still Be Friends Pod. And if you would like to leave us a voice message and, maybe even be featured on the podcast, you can call us. The number is 847-306-9532. Or you can always email us a voice memo.
As always, we'd love it if you could subscribe and leave us a rating or a review at Apple Podcasts. Those ratings really help spread the word about our show. Can We Still Be Friends is written and produced by Ryan Ebling and Nate Goss and edited by Nate Goss. Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time. Fortunately, me and my mom go to me and my mom go to movies all the time, but me and my mom go to me and my mom go to